Regardless. How dare you? I'm a man. I'm a male. I'm a he. I don't get into this. Smith.
What's your pronouns?
I'm a male. I'm a man. I'm a he. I don't get into that mentally ill stuff.
Okay.
Hello. My neighbor decided to vacuum, but you don't care about that. You care about the ring lights in my eyes. Thank you. They're natural. So, as you may or may not know, right now in Romania there are some political presidential elections. And in order to sustain my reaction, I thought that the best thing to do is to passive-aggressively make a video about female-written book recommendations, because lo and behold, they can read and write. I know. Believe it or not, they could also be presidents. My opinion. Nonetheless, this video is gonna be the women in my life, past, present, and future. And what I mean by that is books that I read a while ago, written by females, books that I read more recently, and books that I'm planning to read. So if you're interested in acquiring a female companion that is trustworthy and you can carry in a bag, boy do I have you. You're back. Maybe you? Regardless, keep watching. And if you're not interested, okay. Whatever. First and foremost, first recommendation of the present moment. Margaret Atwood, The Handmaid's Tale. Well, first off, I would like to thank one of you guys for suggesting this read, because how dare you suggest to me such a good recommendation? How dare you suggest to me my favorite book of this whole year? Thank you. Regardless. So, this book is basically, to sum it up in an idea, it's a dystopian, patriarchal society, fictional, but really, it could be non-fictional, that follows the story of a woman whose role is to bear children, one of many. And really, what this book touches on is problems of gender, power, control, and it does so not in a metaphorical way. I think it's very direct in the way that it approaches the topic, but then at the same time it has this depth to it and all of this imagery that could also be metaphorical just as easily. So it just creates such a complex and layered universe. I also think it speaks to the importance of female voices and not limiting the female voice in a society. I think it is a vital book for any female and feminist out there, and if you're a guy reading this, good job. I think this book illustrates perfectly the problems with patriarchal control. This book is also just a powerful warning, basically, of the fragility and fragility of rights and freedoms that is often taken for granted by so many of us. On to number 2 out of the present reads, we've got Breasts and Eggs, that I've kind of mentioned when I was writing the book in the summer, but it took me a little while longer because I started other books in the meantime. So with this read, although it tackles different topics, it's still talking about the struggles of womanhood in a very direct way, if you're asking me. I think it's a bit more focused on maybe the struggles of the modern woman, but it still talks so much about the struggles that women have with identity, with societal expectations, with their bodies, with love, actually, with feelings, with maternal instinct. It really talks about everything and really delves into the perspective in a very complex, in a very complex way, simply because it's also put in through the mind of three characters. So you have a woman that has a sister that also has a daughter. And you get the three perspectives of each one of them and how each one of them copes with being a woman, to be fair, in modern Japan. I think, in a way, this is a deeply personal but also political talk through a book that is done really nicely and in a way that just about anyone can understand and kind of get the message without having to try too hard. And I think, in general, this book encourages a lot of women to go through this process of almost self-definition, if that makes sense. I definitely think it's a lighter read than The Handmaid's Tale, by the way, just in the sense of how the gravity of the situation is portrayed. Okay, so this book is maybe a little bit more of a... Yeah, it is female written, but it doesn't necessarily go into feminist topics, or it doesn't obviously go into the direction of womanhood. However, in this hefty book that has taken me some time to read, and I will say it's a bit wordy. Sometimes it's a bit unnecessary. I still did enjoy it, and I'm still gonna recommend it. Babel by R.F. Kuang. I think what this book does really well is that it basically discusses these themes of language and identity, sometimes imperialism, and not sometimes, a lot of the times imperialism, race. Basically, it's the story of this Chinese-born orphan that gets into this fancy linguistics program where he meets a bunch of other people from different cultures that also have some of the same struggles as him, being in this very eloquent space. And I think it's basically a brilliant blend of historical fiction, because it is really accurate. If you actually look into it, it truly is. But also something of a post-colonial sort of critique. So basically the novel sort of puts under, the microscope a little bit the cost of assimilation, the ethics of power a lot of the times, but also, unfortunately, the violence necessary for change. You can tell that a lot of research was put into this book, and although maybe I don't recommend it with as much of a heart as the others, sorry, that was my laptop. I still think it's a really good recommendation. Going back to the past, this is more of a two-in-one kind of recommendation, but it's The Inseparables by Simone de Beauvoir. I'm also doubling it up with The Second Sex by Simone de Beauvoir, which is more of a culturally significant, very philosophical book, and it's definitely a lot lengthier than this one. But it has two parts, and I think it's way more technical. This is a light read. This is a beautiful read in comparison to that. Still recommended, though. I think the first section was something along the lines of myths and facts, and then the other one I need to check. The other one apparently is the experiences. So yeah, it's basically more of the delving into actual stories part. Regardless, I think this is a beautiful piece that talks so much about female friendship, especially once again in a patriarchal society still, because this goes a lot back in the past. Gender, sexuality, there is a lot of exploration of that. There is a lot of exploration of, again, a woman finding her role in a society that tells her who she should be, which that, when does that ever stop? And this is universal. It's not just for women at this point. It is for men as well. I do have to acknowledge that. It's true. And I'm aware. But in a way, it feels like a really liberating read, especially because it talks so much about conformity and freedom in your 20s. It felt like a perfect read when I did read it, I think, a year and a half ago or 2 years ago. And I think this story, in a sense, is both tender and light, but also tragic at the same time. It almost feels like you mixed a little bit of Jane Austen into what you would think Simone de Beauvoir is going to sound like, because it deals also with a lot of the familial kind of expectations that are put on girls. Now, this next one is a little bit creepier and a little bit unsettling, but it's The Lovely Bones by Alice Sebold. I don't have the paper version to hold in hand because I read it on the Kindle, but I would like to get the paperback. It's basically a story that follows a very young girl whose life was sadly taken away. And the story is basically her in the afterlife, watching her family cope with the loss and the grief, but also with the mystery of her disappearance, in a sense, and trying to solve and put the puzzle pieces together of what happened. So I think it's a really masterful but also really haunting exploration of grief and loss, but also the search for justice, in a sense. So it's a very hauntingly emotional read. I'm not gonna spoil it for you, but it's something. And if you don't feel like that's a recommendation enough, I can also tell you that a movie was made a whole while ago, a bunch of years ago, with Saoirse Ronan. So that's everything I need to say. Okay, let's get into my other recommendation. So, in case you needed another Saoirse Ronan adaptation from book to movie, although there have been multiple adaptations of that book, we have Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. I think this is just a classic. I think it's timeless. It explores basically a family that is all women, sisters and mother, all different personalities, all different aspirations, all from different walks of life. And although in a way you could argue that they are stereotypically going into one type, I still think for that time period it was very liberating to see more than one type of women. So that book basically just explores the journey of one of the sisters, more specifically Jo March, and her journey of becoming a writer, while also talking about the others and their perspectives, especially the mom. And it's really wholesome and it's really nice. I loved it. It was probably one of my first female written reads ever. I've had the book since I was a little kid. And now, very shortly going into the future, I already bought two of the books that I'm going to read, but I also have one that I'm just going to talk about hypothetically more so right now. So I know that there is Paradise Rot that I really want to get my paws on, and that is, I heard it's just this visceral, somewhat disgusting, weird LGBTQ female situation that talks about young life, and it's written by Jenny Hval that I don't actually know about, and I've never read anything from her, but it looks beautiful, it sounds beautiful, the title is beautiful, the cover of the book is beautiful. I forgot to mention boy parts. It makes me think of boy parts, but I don't think they're... You get it. On to the next one. I've had this in my bookshelf, but not really in my bookshelf. It was in my dad's bookshelf, and then I took it. It's Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo. Please, I pray I'm reading that right. It says right here, this is Britain as you've never read it. This is Britain as it has never been told. From the top of the country to the bottom, across more than a century of change and growth and struggle and life, Girl, Woman, Other follows 12 very different characters on an entwined journey of discovery. It is future, it is past, it is fiction, it is history. It is a novel about who we are now. Somebody said Sunday Times deemed it as exuberant, freewheeling, triumphant. A big, bold, sexy book that cracks open a world that needs to be known. And that's all I need to know. If it follows generations of black women throughout the UK and Britain in general, sign me up. Fabulous. Now on to the last book that came to mind right now. There's probably going to be a lot more. There's going to be a lot more, trust me, this year. But we have The Imposium, which is a health resort horror story. This recommendation did not actually come from anybody, and it's not something I necessarily saw anywhere. I actually asked ChatGPT to give me some book recommendation based on my taste, and to give me some questions so I could get some recommendations, and it gave me this. So I'm really intrigued. Also, I was really surprised that they had it at the bookstore. Because I did go in for it, but I didn't think they were going to have it. So yeah, I took it as a sign. We're going to read the back together. Also, this is the author whose name I'm not going to miss, Olga. Good enough for me. Let's read the back. So, in September 1913, a young Pole suffering from tuberculosis arrives at Willem Opit's guest house for gentlemen, a health resort in the Silesian mountains. I am blind. Wait a second. Where did I put my glasses? Okay. Every evening, the residents gather to imbibe the hallucinogenic local liquor and debate the great issues of the day. Monarchy or democracy? Do devils exist? Are women born inferior? War or peace? Meanwhile, disturbing things are happening in the guest house and the surrounding hills. Someone or something seems to be watching, attempting to infiltrate this cloistered world. I'm blind. Truly. Little does the newcomer realize, as he tries to unravel both the truths within himself and the mystery of the sinister forces beyond, that they have already chosen their next target. A century after the publication of The Magic Mountain by the same author whose name I'm not going to try if you caught on to that, revisits Thomas Mann territory and lays claim to it, blending horror story, comedy, folklore, and feminist parable with brilliant storytelling. A magnificent writer by Svetlana Alexievich. Bam! At least that one I can read. So yeah. With that, it's got no inside. Nothing. I'm questioning things now. Oh, and for the present moment, I'm also gonna mention my girl right here, Sayaka Murata. Sorry. I moved the frame a little bit, but basically she has this really beautiful exploration and really weird and really peculiar and sometimes even triggering and visceral exploration of societal issues and how she sees society to be somewhat of a factory, which is a vision I somewhat agree with. I'm gonna resume my views, but you can gather them probably. And yeah, they're creepy but amazing. It's a very creepy observation of relationships, female, male. But I also find that there are these wholesome moments or these paragraphs where I've genuinely underlined something, like the desire to get so close to somebody that you get under their skin, almost. So, once again, I forgot to mention something. I think this would go definitely in the books of the past, but A Remove One's Own by Virginia Woolf, I think, is an amazing choice. I think it very overtly talks about the lack of opportunities women had in the past when it comes to education, to publishing and writing. They had to write most of the times under pseudonyms or under men's names. I just think, frankly, any book by Virginia Woolf is a good choice. I personally have read The Waves from Virginia Woolf, Flush, what else? The Lighthouse? Is that what it was called? I forgot. I'm not gonna lie to you. But yeah. Call me Vita, because I'm in love with Virginia Woolf. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I leave you with my very ring-colored eyes. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope I didn't bore you too much. If I did, just know that there's more interesting stuff coming. This video just came as a very passive-aggressive response from me for the political situation going on right now. And I cannot wait to go on Sunday and vote, because I will. So, yeah. Enjoy. And let the females write and express themselves, because they can. Enjoy some novelty and depth that men are also capable of, but, you know, the more diversity, the better. Just saying. Kisses. Enjoy your week, your day, your meal, your whatever. And stay safe. And I get my hair out of my face. Yeah. As per usual, kisses and hugs, all the love from me, and good job for going through another week or day.